to Cody Talks NFL, presented by Blitzalytics.com. And here's your host, Cody Manning.
And welcome into the Friday edition of the Cody Talks NFL. Actually, you can tell by my hat, it's the holiday edition of Cody Talks NFL. You're going to see this hat for this episode, and I'm going to go ahead and do it on Monday since Christmas is coming up on Wednesday. I saw my buddy on the Blitzalytics YouTube channel, Roy Countryman, over at Steel City Sermon, rock his Steelers Christmas hat. I couldn't let him have all the fun, so I decided to rock the hat today. I'm in a great mood. I'm going to go see the new Star Wars movie later today, so I'm going to get in here, get you guys out, and hope you guys enjoy this episode. I do actually have some news topics I wanted to cover before I go into this weekend's game previews. First thing, the Lions came out, the owner, Martha Ford, and she committed that Bob Quinn, their GM, and Matt Patricia will be back for the 2020 season. That makes complete sense to me. The team was competitive earlier in this season. They had a chance to have a great year. And then once Matthew Stafford went down with his injury and then other injuries to like Kerryon Johnson, Marvin Jones, TJ Hawkinson, and others, once all that stuff happened, their season kind of went away from them. So you can't really put the blame on the coaching staff. I do believe you could kind of somewhat put blame on Bob Quinn because this roster, I mean, this is something I talked about earlier in the season. Once, some key guys went down, you could see the lack of depth on this team, and it really showed. And it's shown over this past month as they kind of gotten blown out the door in most of their matchups. But they do get a chance to compete. The thing is, though, Martha Ford did say that they do expect to be in the playoffs next year, and they do expect to be playing meaningful football in December. So while he does have the job for next year, the both of them have a job for next year, I think it's safe to say they will be, I guess, when people write their articles about coaches entering the season on the hot seat, Matt Patricia will be one of them. And I mean, if the Lions at some point are eliminated from the playoff contention, I would not be surprised if Matt Patricia gets fired in the season. So basically, it's playoff or bust for the Lions next year. Next notice is the Jaguars have fired their executive vice president of football operations, Tom Coughlin. It's just his time has ran out in Jacksonville in his second stint there. And the reason why is I guess it came out that Tom Coughlin was actually planning to leave the team after this season. But over this past week, the main one, there's a lot of grievances that got filed in the players' favor over the past week. Dante Fowler won a grievance against the Jaguars. He got fined 25 times for more than $700,000. And then the NFLPA sent out a letter that noted that 25% of the grievances filed by NFL players over the last 2 years came against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they quoted this in that letter. You, as players, may want to consider this when you have a chance to select your next club. So, of course, Shad Khan acted upon that. He decided to go ahead and get rid of Tom Coughlin. A.J. Bouye came out yesterday talking about we already noticed that Coughlin's gone because what Tom Coughlin had a old school approach where he had the clock set back 5 minutes through the real time, and they adjusted the clocks back to normal time, and he noticed that this week. So I don't know. I get Tom Coughlin. I do actually respect him as a coach, as a human, and what he's done in the NFL. But not only in like football, you can actually talk about this in society. Things are changing. People are changing, and businesses, NFL teams, they have to adapt with times. And if you're not willing to adapt, the old saying, you're going to die. So unfortunately, he didn't die, I guess. That's a hard thing to say. But, I mean, he just didn't adapt to the new times, adapt to the new players. And I think we're kind of seeing what happened to the Jacksonville Jaguars since their deep playoff run a couple years ago. The morale of the team just fell apart. I mean, we saw Jalen Ramsey kind of sent out a tweet once Coughlin got fired. You could tell like this stuff lingered into the locker room, and this is the reason why the Jaguars fell apart. And more than likely, Doug Marrone will be on his way out, and it'll be a whole new regime change in Jacksonville. Next news topic I wanted to get into, the Panthers have benched Kyle Allen, and they named Will Greer the starter for the final 2 games of the season. I get why they're doing this. Kyle Allen over his last 7 or 8 games, he's thrown 15 interceptions. He's really came back down to earth. They drafted Will Grier, I want to say in the 3rd or 4th round. I want to say I lean towards the 4th round. That seems like his likely spot where he landed last year, if I remember where I viewed him at. But they get a guy that has a great deep arm, a great deep ball. Now, the last time we saw him in preseason, he did not look that great. I mean, it's pretty telling where he was at as an NFL quarterback. The fact that they started Kyle Allen over him over this time. I know Kyle Allen was playing good for a good stretch, but it makes sense for them to see what they got in Will Grier. Keep in mind, I know some people think Kyle Allen could be, the starter next year, but obviously that's kind of put to rest. And Kyle Allen's actually a free agent after this next season. So they have to see what they have in Will Grier. He was the 3rd round quarterback, then drafted in the 3rd round. So thank you, Rob. So yeah, it was a first time since 2011 too. They drafted a quarterback. So I don't know. They need to see what they have in him. They got to put some tape on there because, honestly, it's whoever the new coach's decision on who he wants to be their quarterback next year. So they probably want to at least give Grier some tape and see if maybe they want to be in a competition to be the starter. We'll see. He's got the Colts next week or this week. I'll preview that later in this episode. But yeah, I'll just go ahead and dive into the game previews. I'm going to start with tomorrow's games. Yeah, so if anybody has not been paying attention, you probably should definitely notice this. If you're a fantasy football player, make sure your lineups are set probably before you go to bed tonight so you don't forget or wake up early tomorrow, Saturday. But we have three games this Saturday, all back to back. I really like the slate of games. The NFL kind of lucked out as far as getting some meaningful games this Saturday. I'll start off. Houston's traveling here to Tampa Bay to face the Buccaneers. There is no news on either team, but as far as the injury report on the Texans front, Jacob Martin's out with a knee injury. Bernard McKinney is out with a concussion. And then these following players are questionable for the matchup. Jaleel Adai with an Achilles, Will Fuller with a hamstring, Carlos Hyde with an ankle, and Tywan Jones with a hamstring, and Brennan Scarlett with an Achilles and shoulder injury. And the following players for the Bucs are out. Bo Allen with the ankle, Chris Godwin with a hamstring, and Tanner Hudson with a concussion. And then these following players are questionable. Jameis Winston with a thumb and knee injury, Ryan Jensen with an elbow, Donovan Smith with an ankle and knee injury, and Carlton Davis with an ankle injury. As far as this matchup, how I see this going, Houston, all they need to do is win this game, and they win the AFC South, and they lock themselves into a home playoff game, more likely a wild card game. I don't believe they even have a legit shot to get a first-round bye. Maybe mathematically they do, but it seems highly unlikely they'll get a first-round bye. So basically, they want to win this game, lock in a home wild card game, and then see where the seeding falls. And through week 17, Bucs have been eliminated for a while, but they have been one of the hotter teams over the past month, a team necessarily you don't want to face. This is actually I actually wrote about this in my Bucs article, and it literally just got posted on Blitzalytics.com, so go please check that out. But this is a litmus test for the Buccaneers. Now, I know they've been one of the hotter teams over the past month, but and their little 4-game winning streak, it has not came against a team that currently has a winning record. This could be a signature win for the Buccaneers. This could be something that could carry some momentum into next year if they can beat a team that's going to be competing in the playoffs come January. I think this is going to be a game where it has tons of shootout potential, but obviously missing a Mike Evans, missing a Chris Godwin is going to hurt the Bucs' chances to win this game. But I really don't necessarily trust the Texans defense. I do still think without those two, the Buccaneers can go toe-to-toe with the Texans. But if I'm going to pick a winner, I'm going with the Texans. They got Deshaun Watson. They got a healthier offense. They have more to fight for than the Bucs at this point of the season. So I think I think the Texans are going to squeeze out a win over the Bucs. I do think it's going to come down to the wire. I could see the Bucs pulling off this, but because of the injuries to Godwin and Evans, I lean towards the Texans and the Texans winning that game to lock up the AFC South, to lock up that home game of the playoffs. I could see the Texans winning a shootout, like a 34-28 type of win for the Houston Texans. And then I'm going to go ahead and get into the middle afternoon game of Saturday. Buffalo is traveling to New England to face the Patriots. No news on either team. As far as injuries with the Bills, Ty Neshke has been ruled out with an ankle injury, and Corey Liggett, I probably butchered that. Sorry, dude. He's questionable with a knee injury. On the Patriots front, Jonathan Jones, their slot corner, who's had a great year, he's been ruled out with a groin injury. And then these following 4 players have been listed as questionable. Juwan Bentley with a knee, Julian Edelman with a shoulder and knee injury, Jason McCourty with a groin injury, and then Jamie Collins with a shoulder injury. This game has a lot on the line. Now, here's the thing. If the Bills win this game, it doesn't mean they win the AFC East. They would actually have to win this game and hope the Patriots lose to the Dolphins next week in order. And of course, the Bills would have to win next week against the Jets for them to win the AFC East. But I mean, the Patriots also need a win so they can keep a hold of the number 2 seed in the AFC. Obviously, I highly doubt it happens, but they're hoping the Ravens can drop these last 2 games and maybe they slide into the number 1 seed in the AFC. Don't necessarily see that happening. So both teams have something to fight for. Personally, in my opinion, even though the Bills are going to be in the playoffs, they're going to have a chance to compete for the Super Bowl. I still feel like this is their Super Bowl, right? This is a chance for them to beat the Patriots, even if the Patriots go on to win the AFC East. This could be like even with the Patriots win the AFC East, I feel like this could be a turning of the guard in the AFC East. This could, say a lot for next season as far as who can win the AFC East in 2020. So I feel like this is their Super Bowl. I said all along, I think the Bills and Patriots were going to split this series. I think the Bills are going to find a way to win. And the reason why, the Patriots offense has been extremely limited, and the Bills defense is great this year. And I trust the Bills defense to be able to slow down the Patriots offense, maybe get an interception off of Brady. And while the Patriots defense is great, I think Josh Allen can do enough with his legs to move the chains to get his team in scoring position more than the Patriots offense. So I think the Bills are going to find a way to win this in Foxborough and get that signature win as they head into the playoffs, get some momentum as they head into the playoffs, regardless if they end up as the AFC East champs or not. Like I said, I think this is their Super Bowl. I think they're going to sell out to win this game. I think this means everything to not only the team, but to the franchise and to the city of Buffalo. So I think Buffalo is going to come out to play. It's going to be a close one. I mean, I can see this going either other way. I think they find a way to win a defensive battle. I see the Bills winning like a 21-17 type of win, and that can carry some momentum, and that gives them that signature win that they're seeking for as they head into the playoffs. And I mean, they beat the Cowboys on the road. They beat the Steelers on the road. And if they end up winning this and beat the Patriots on the road, I'm telling you, this might not be a team you want to face come playoff time, especially if the weather is bad outside, like Jack Bourgeois talked about on this one of the Blitz breakdowns this week. I'm going to go ahead and get into the night matchup of Saturday, the last Saturday game. No news. Actually, really quick, this is kind of an injury news update. Quan Alexander for the 49ers actually thinks he could be back for the playoffs. Kyle Shanahan said it's a long shot at this point, but we will see. So there is a chance that Quan Alexander could return to that defense in the playoffs. And if he does, that will provide a much-needed boost to the injury-riddled defense of the 49ers. But as far as injuries for this matchup, I'll start with the Rams since they're the team on the road. Troy Hill's been ruled out with a thumb injury. And then Greg the Leg Zuerlein, he's actually listed as questionable with a quad injury. It sounds like he will play, but we'll see if that quad injury hampers his kicking ability come Saturday night. And then with the 49ers, Dee Ford has been ruled out with a quadricep hamstring injury. Jaquiski Tart with his ribs, Julian Taylor with an elbow, and Mike Pearson has been listed questionable with a neck injury. As far as this game, it is, of course, hard to pick because it is a divisional matchup, but Rams are coming off a game where they laid an egg against the Cowboys. 49ers are coming off a matchup where they laid an egg against the Atlanta Falcons. So it's hard for me to pick this. They are getting Richard Sherman back and K'Waun Williams, so that should help them defend the passing attack of the Rams. The Rams have everything to fight for because they need to win out and hope the Vikings lose to be able to sneak in as a wild card position. And then look at the Niners. They need to win out so they can win the NFC West and get back as the number 1 seed in the NFC. A lot on the line. I could see this going either way. Honestly, I think this is a coin flip. I can see the Rams sneaking out a win on the road to keep their playoff hopes alive. But if I'm going to pick, I'm going to say the 49ers are going to win this because they're the home team in this. They need to get this win before their big matchup against the Seahawks in Week 17. And I don't know. I just lean towards the 49ers just because the Rams have just been more up and down, more questionable, I guess, than the Niners. I know the Niners had to come off that rough loss to the Falcons. So I think just because the 49ers have shown more consistency throughout the season compared to the Rams, I trust the 49ers in this one more than I do the Rams. But I do think it's going to come down to the wire. I do think it's going to be a close matchup. I do think the Rams will have a chance to win. But I will pick the 49ers in like a 24-21 type win for the 49ers. Maybe the injury to Greg the leg hampers the Rams and they miss a field goal because of that. I know Rob's probably pissed off that I'm talking about his kicker like that because he loves Greg the leg. But yeah, I'll pick the Niners in that one. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the 1 p.m. matchups. I'll be honest, guys, there's not a lot on the line as far as playoffs. I'm probably going to breeze through the matchups in these ones. Obviously, all the Saturday matchups have some type of playoff implications that are on the line. But I'm going to go ahead and start with this. Now, even though this doesn't have playoff implications, this could potentially have draft implications. Cincinnati is traveling down to Miami to face the Dolphins. As far as injuries, A.J. Green is expected to miss these last 2 games. Again, though, they're having to list him on the injury report, even though they haven't placed him on IR. Go ahead and do that, please, so you can save me time. John Miller also has not practiced this week for the Bengals with a concussion, and then Joe Mixon has been limited this week with a calf injury. On the Dolphins front, Allen Hurns has been limited with an ankle and knee injury, and Jason Sanders has been limited with an illness. With this game, as far as draft implications, if the Bengals lose this matchup, they lock up the number 1 pick. They lock up their chance to get Joe Burrow. He should be the guy, but I'm not going to say who should be the guy quite yet. I'll dive into that in my off-season episodes when we get closer to the draft. I'm doing a lot of scouting and all that type of stuff. Obviously, the Dolphins lose this game, and then maybe the Bengals somehow win next week's game against the Browns. Obviously, the Dolphins will have a chance to slide in as the number 1 pick. But as far as this game, like I said, if it doesn't have a lot of playoff implications, I'm not going to cover it heavily for you guys. Dolphins are at home. They have played better than the Bengals throughout the season. So I'm going to give the slight advantage to the Dolphins. I can definitely see the Bengals winning this game. I can see Joe Mixon have a big game. I can see Andy Dalton have a big game because the Dolphins are, like I said, they're still a pretty bad team. But I'm a slightly lean towards the Dolphins since they're at home. I can see them winning like an ugly 21-17 type win. I don't know, guys. They're both bad teams. Give me a break here. But yeah, I can see them. I'm picking Dolphins because they are at home. Next game, I think I'm way too excited about this game just because of one reason, even though I should be. Pittsburgh is traveling out to New York to face the Jets. As far as injuries heading into the matchup, on the Steelers front, these 2 players didn't practice so far this week. Joe Hayden with a foot injury and Nick Bennett with an illness injury. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster was a full practice yesterday, so we'll see if he's able to return for the Steelers and provide a much-needed boost and help out Doug Hodges in the passing attack. As far as New York, of course, Rob gave me something new I didn't notice. I'm going to go ahead and report this for the Jets. I guess Matt Miller had a new article on Bleacher Report, and in that article, he said, one player told me Adam Gase lost the respect of the locker room with his tough guy bullshit attitude and the team's lack of playing offensively. Guys actually respect Greg Williams. He said no one respects Adam Gase. Interesting. I know the ownership committed to Gase till next year, but again, if you guys been listening to me all season, I've kind of been preaching. I think Adam Gase should be a one and done situation. Go get a guy like Matt Rule. They had a chance to get Matt Rule last year, but the only reason why they didn't get Matt Rule is because they wouldn't allow him to pick his own coaches on his staff. Like, why would you let me this? I don't know if this is a Jets thing. I don't know if this is an NFL wide thing. I know this happened with the Packers when they hired Matt LaFleur. They would only hire a coach that would let Mike Pettin, their current defense coordinator, stay at that position, which is kind of somewhat worked out. But I still don't believe, like, if you're going to hire a coach, let him pick his staff and you ride or die with that decision. So everybody already knows that. I think Gase should be done if you've been a long-time listener, but that's quite interesting that players are willing to make that type of comment in the media. So it probably is something you want to move on before you have an ugly 2020 season and you ruin Sam Darnold's growth as a quarterback, because Sam Darnold has shown some flashes this year, but he's also shown some bad things. And we've seen players like Ryan Tannehill, Kenyon Drake, Devontae Parker, all guys that were under Adam Gase in Miami, flourish in the season without him. That should be a telling sign, and at least in my eyes. But as far as the Jets injury report, Tom Compton, these three players have not practiced this week. Tom Compton with a calf, Demarius Thomas with a hamstring and knee, and then Robbie Anderson with an illness. The following players have been limited. Jamal Adams with an ankle, Henry Anderson with a shoulder, Kelvin Beachum with an ankle, Steve McClendon with a knee and hip, and Quentin Williams with a neck injury. The reason why I was excited about this matchup is if anybody's listened to some recent podcasts, if anybody listened to one of my podcasts at the beginning of the year, I'm pretty positive I talked about this on one of my podcasts, is what if we got to this point of the season, the Steelers had some playoff hopes on the line, and Le'Veon Bell could ruin it. So that's why I'm very invested in this matchup. I would love to see Le'Veon have a Le'Veon type of game against the Steelers. Go over 100, 150 scrimmage yards, couple touchdowns, have a chance to ruin their playoff hopes. Pittsburgh is currently sitting at the number 6 seed. If they win out, they get into the playoffs. If they would lose one of these games and the Titans win out, the Titans could squeeze in as a wild card. There's technically a chance for a team I don't see it happening, but the Browns or Raiders to slide in at that number 6 seed. But yeah, Steelers are on the road. Jets are an up and down team. The weird thing is the Jets have that talent to beat the Steelers because of how limited the Steelers offense can be at times with their questionable play calling. With obviously you're down to your third string quarterback in Duck Hodges. I like Duck's moxie, but he does have limitations to his game. And if Jamal Adams ends up playing in this game, I think that can somewhat affect the Steelers offense and slow them down, even though you really don't need much to slow them down. I don't know. I think this is going to be a close game. Maybe this is me hoping Le'Veon gets his revenge because I'm a Le'Veon stan, guys, even though he's had a down year. But with the Steelers having more to fight for than the Pittsburgh, I'm going to go with my football head. I'm going to say Mike Tomlin finds a way to win a close matchup. I do think the Jets will have a chance to win, but because Pittsburgh has more to fight for compared to the Jets, and especially with that quote that Rob found for me from a player within the locker room division, locker room chemistry is messed up. I can't lean on that. I can't trust that as much as I would love to see the Le'Veon revenge. I'm going to say the Steelers do squeeze out a win, I don't know. I can see this being I don't know. I want to give them some points, but then I don't. I'm going to say they don't really score much points, but neither the Jets because of how good the Steelers defense is. I can see this being a 17-14 type win for the Steelers to keep their playoff hopes alive entering week 17. I'm going to go ahead and get into this next matchup. This one doesn't have much playoff hopes on the line, but it's a divisional matchup, and there could be some significant draft implications on the line. Giants are traveling to Washington. We actually, because of, I think Daniel Jones played the first matchup, but no, Dwayne Haskins played the first matchup. I don't know. This is because for whatever reason, I don't recall Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins going against each other. beginning of the year. That's my fault for not remembering that correctly. But the Giants are traveling to Washington. As far as injuries, Kevin Zeitler and Brett Ellison have both been limited. Zeitler with an ankle and Ellison with a concussion injury. Then with the Redskins, they're pretty banged up entering this matchup. Landon Collins has not practiced with an Achilles. Fabian Moreau with a hamstring, and Quentin Dunbar. Both those guys have not practiced with hamstring injuries, and also Adrian Peterson has not practiced with a toe injury. Following three players have been limited with injuries: Jonathan Allen with a toe, Monte Nicholson with an ankle, and then Donald Penn with a knee injury. There's not, like I said, no playoff implications on the line, but the thing is, both these teams are right around each other in the draft order. Giants are currently sitting at the number 2 spot in the draft. The Redskins are currently sitting at the number 4 spot in the draft. I honestly think Joe Burrow is a lock to go at number 1. So it's basically the Chase Young sweepstakes, and I think both teams could be in play to pick Chase Young if somehow they were to end up at the number 2 pick. If somehow the Dolphins end up at the number 2 pick, I think the Dolphins would actually take Chase Young. I don't see Tua going in the top 5 because of the injury. But yeah. That's for an off-season episode. I can talk about the draft, and once the draft order's set, we can really see who's going to go where. As far as this matchup, I don't want to say like a team would tank, right? It makes sense it would make sense for the Giants to lose this game to make sure a Chase Young could end up in the hands of the Redskins. But also you got to keep in mind too, even though he's pretty much good as gone, Pat Shurmur is technically, still somewhat fighting for his job. They just won a game last week. If they can win this game, he's going to try to string along games and, some wins to maybe fight and keep his job. I still think if he were to win out, it wouldn't help his cause. It seems like the Giants are ready to move on from him, even though I bring this up all the time. I still think coaches should have until their 3rd season, especially when he was dealt a hard hand with Daniel Jones being a rookie. Daniel Jones got hurt. You got to keep in mind, this season, with Evan Ingram going to IR this week, there has never been a game where they got to have Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram, Darius Slayton, Golden Tate, and Sterling Shepard in one game. So, we didn't really get to see what this offense could be with all those guys being healthy. So, but there also is some very, very questionable coaching decisions by Pat Shurmur that make you wonder if he should be a head coach. So I think it's a flip of the coin if he returns this year. I still think he could potentially be fired. Redskins obviously are on their interim head coach. I don't know. This is a hard game for me to pick. I could see it going either way. What's his name? Dwayne Haskins has played better ball over the last couple of weeks. If I'm going to pick, I'm looking at this injury report for the Redskins, like guys like Landon Collins, Fabian Moreau, Quentin Dunbar, some of their key guys in that secondary. I'm going to pick the Giants. I think the Giants find a way to win. I could see it going either way. I think they win like a 27-21 type win. I don't know, guys. It's battle of 2 teams. I told you I want to spend time on these, but I'm sorry. Rob did. I didn't see Rob help me out. My screen wasn't scrolled down that far. He said Haskins and Keenum played both last time. Oh, that's right. So Keenum got the start, and then Haskins came in, if I remember right, and they both threw for 4 interceptions and no touchdowns. So I don't know. I'm gonna pick the Giants. That even helps my case to pick the Giants even more. I'm gonna go ahead and get into this next matchup. Carolina is traveling to Indianapolis to face my Colts. As far as injuries heading into this matchup, these following 3 players for the Panthers haven't practiced this week. Mario Anderson with a shoulder, Shaq Thompson with an ankle, and Vernon Butler with an illness injury, and then Curtis Samuel has been limited with a knee injury. On the Colts front, the following 4 players haven't practiced this week. Denico Autry with a concussion, Malik Hooker with a hand, Kenny Moore with an ankle, Quincy Wilson with a shoulder, and then Anthony Walker has been limited with a hamstring injury. I'll be very quick with this one because this has no type of implications at all. Both teams are right outside the top 10 as far as draft positioning, so that really doesn't have a major impact as well. You're talking about a rookie quarterback on the road, getting his first start. Colts have really fell off over the past month, but so have the Panthers. So I think it's a flip of the coin. I'm going to go with the Colts because they are the home team. They are going against a rookie quarterback. If you obviously, I paid attention. It's my team, but the players are very upset with how the back end of the season has gone. They're very angry. They talked. Darius Leonard is talking. He didn't want to talk about his Pro Bowl selection. You want to talk about how he doesn't want to sit in the offseason with a losing record. So it seems like the team really wants to get to that 8-8 record. The team seems like, as far as roster build, they should be at least an 8-8 team, even with how they played over this last season. Obviously, they're going against an interim head coach. So I trust Frank Reich over an interim head coach, to say the least. So I can see the Colts winning like a 28-21 type win for the Colts. I'm going to go ahead and get into the next game, though. Baltimore is traveling to Cleveland. As far as the injuries, the Ravens are really healthy. They have not only they have no notable injuries on the injury report, because normally I just report guys that are starters or important players on the team, but they had no injuries at all. They are basically just resting dudes this week as far as veteran players. The Browns, though, these following players have been listed or have not practiced. Sheldon Richardson with a back and J.C. Treader with a knee. And then these following guys have been limited this week. OBJ with a groin, Chris Hubbard with a knee, Jarvis Landry with a hip, Olivier Vernon with a knee, and then Denzel Ward with an ankle injury. As far as playoff implications, if Baltimore wins this game, they will lock up the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Browns still technically have a shot. Obviously, they have to have things fall their way, and obviously they have to win out. The Browns actually have one of the 2 losses on the Ravens have suffered earlier in the season. They actually beat up on the Ravens earlier in the year. So I think the Baltimore, obviously they want to split the series. They want to end Cleveland's season as well. Obviously, a loss to Cleveland officially will knock them out of the playoff contention. So, and then obviously, Browns are coming off a bad loss against the Cardinals. Their season has not gone the way they have. Ravens are the team to beat in the AFC. I don't see them I don't see the Browns repeating their success against the Ravens like they had earlier in the year. So I'm going to pick Baltimore. I think they're going to want to lock up the number 1 seed. I think they actually handle the Browns in this one. I don't think the Browns really even have a shot. I could see this being like a 31-21 type win for the Ravens. I'm going to go ahead and get into this next matchup. Guys, this is another one that has no playoff implications on the line. Both teams are out of the playoffs. Jaguars are traveling up to Atlanta to face the Falcons. This is a long list because at this point of the year, you'll notice, if you haven't noticed, with some of the bad teams I've already talked about that are out of playoff contention, this is when guys start showing up on the injury report so they don't have to practice as hard and they just want to get to the offseason at this point. So a long list for you of guys on the Jaguars that have been limited. Gardner Minshew with a shoulder, DJ Chark with an ankle, DJ Hayden with a knee, Josh Allen with a shoulder, Austin Calitro with a shoulder, Brandon Linder with a knee, Cam Robinson with a knee, Calais Campbell with the back, Avery Jones with an elbow, and AJ Bouye with a hamstring injury. And then the following players for the Falcons on the injury report as far as notable names: James Carpenter hasn't practiced with a concussion, Jamon Brown with an illness hasn't practiced, and then Ricardo Allen and Julio Jones have both been limited with shoulder injuries. As far as this game, I don't know. I guess I got to go with the Falcons. They're at home. They just beat the 49ers. It seems like they're fighting for Dan Quinn's job. Doug Marrone seems to be on his way out. So if his team wants him to return next year, it seems like the best chance for that to happen is for them to win out, and maybe they convince Shad Khan for one more year. I don't see that happening. I can see somehow Arthur Blank convincing himself to give Dan Quinn one more year, since they beat the Niners, and it seems like they might end up at a 7-9 record. I don't necessarily think that's the right decision to make, but I'll pick the Falcons. They're at home. They played better as of late. I could see them winning like a 28-17 type win for the Falcons. I'm going to go ahead and get into this next matchup. This next matchup obviously has a lot on the line for both teams. The Saints are traveling to Tennessee to face the Titans. Starting on the Saints side, earlier in this week, they did claim Janoris Jenkins off the waiver. I think that's a big pickup for their defense. He should be able to help out that secondary. He will be able to. He is a lot better of a player than, in my opinion, than Eli Apple. And when we kind of saw Eli Apple get picked apart by a guy like Marcus Johnson from the Colts, I know that game score doesn't show it, but if you actually watch the game, there's a lot of catches and easy balls that Marcus Johnson was able to catch against him. So I think that does help out shore up the secondary, especially come playoff time where you're going to go against some of these better offenses in the NFC. As far as injury reports, though, for the Saints, Von Bell hasn't practiced and Larry Warford hasn't practiced. Both of them have a knee injury. Following players have been limited for the Saints: Kiko Alonso with a quadricep injury, Andres Piet with a forearm, Teron Armstead with an ankle, Ryan Ramczyk with a knee, and then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson with a concussion. And then on the Titans front, they did sign a new kicker this week. They signed Greg Joseph. It's a pretty interesting stat entering these last 2 weeks of the season. Is currently right now the Titans have more field goals missed than made, and if that continues and they don't get more, if they don't improve on that, they'll be like the first team since 1983 to have more field goals missed than made. So obviously they want to fix the kicking game if they want a chance to not only make the playoffs, but also have a chance within the playoffs if they are able to sneak in. As far as injuries, though, Adam Humphries has not practiced with an ankle. Derrick Henry has not practiced with a hamstring. Adoree Jackson has not practiced with a foot. And then Corey Davis and Deion Lewis have been limited this week with ankle injuries. As far as how this game's going to go, I mean, the Titans, they have to win this. Obviously, they're watching the Steelers. They're on the Steelers' back for the wild card. They still technically have a shot to win the AFC South, but that will be dependent on the Buccaneers beating the Texans this week, and then they would have to beat the Texans in their Week 17 matchup. So it seems more likely they're going to. Obviously, it will depend on the Saturday game and their mindset entering this matchup. Obviously, it's a win no matter what. How the Texans play, they're going to obviously want to win this one. They're going to want to hope the Steelers do drop that game against the Jets. They're going to want to try to sneak in as that wild card. As far as the Saints, though, they're going to want to keep on winning. They're going to want to hope like the Packers lose to the Vikings on Monday night. They're going to want to try to sneak in as that number 2 seed. I do believe they'll have a chance at the number 1 seed. I don't have exactly how they would have to have things play out in their favor, but obviously they would need the Niners to be losing since the Niners hold the tie advantage of them if the Niners are able to get back and win the NFC West. Now, this will be an interesting game to watch because this is on the road. Drew Brees has played pretty well over the last 2 weeks, but he does typically struggle in outdoor conditions. So it'll be probably dependent on the weather. It'll be dependent on if they can get Derrick Henry going on the ground game. If Ryan Tannehill can go toe-to-toe with the Saints and Drew Brees in the passing attack. Man, this is such a hard one for me to pick. If this was in New Orleans, I do think the Saints would handle their business. But with this being an outdoor game, I'm not sure how the weather will be on Sunday in Nashville. I don't know. Something tells me the Titans are going to find a way to win this and keep their playoff hopes alive. Yeah, I don't know. I can see this going either way. It's so hard for me to predict because, man, I'm just trying to think this inside my head for you guys on which way I could see this going, because if they could somehow limit Michael Thomas, which will be struggling because their pass defense has struggled as of late, they could have a chance to win this game. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Titans. I don't know. Something tells me. It's my gut intuition, guys. I don't have a reason. It's just inside my gut. I think the Titans are going to find a way to win. I think they got – the Saints are in the playoffs, so if you can kind of get where I'm coming from on this, the Titans have more to fight for because they have to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. So I'm going to say the Titans squeeze out a win. It's going to be a low-scoring affair. Whether I think the outdoor conditions do slow down the Saints offense. So I'm going to go ahead and say the Titans win like a 24-21 type win. There you guys go. I could be wrong. I could see the Saints winning this, but I'm going to give the Titans a slight advantage since they are at home and it's the Saints traveling on the road in outdoor conditions. I'm going to go ahead and get into the afternoon games, the second half games of the day. The first game I'm going to talk about, Oakland is traveling to the LA to face the Chargers. As far as injuries heading into this matchup, the Raiders did place Trent Brown on IR. His season is officially done. Their offensive line is actually pretty banged up heading into this matchup. Richie Incognito has not practiced with an ankle. Gabe Jackson with a knee. Josh Jacobs has not practiced this week with a shoulder injury, and Gruden has actually already ruled him out for this matchup. So it sounds like his rookie year could be coming to an end because it really doesn't make sense for him to play Week 17. Obviously, if they win this game and there's a slight chance for them to sneak into the playoffs as a wild card, he may play Week 17. But I lean towards them not having that chance. Rodney Hudson has been limited with the ankle injury. Then Hunter Renfrow has been limited with ribs. And then Daryl Worley has been limited with a neck injury. And then the only notable name on the Chargers injury report is Russell Okung. He has not practiced with a groin injury. As far as how I think this game's going to go, I'm gonna pick the Chargers in this one just because I know the Chargers. It's not a technically home game. I'm sure we're gonna see a lot of black Raiders jerseys in that stadium, but I think that after the letdown and Oakland's final homestand, I think that's going to have an effect on this matchup. I do think those injuries to like Trent Brown and all those injuries to the line's going to come into play. I think Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram are going to be able to get after the quarterback. I can see a Derwin James having a Derwin James type of game. We haven't really seen that since he's returned from his injury. I could see like a pick six from Derwin James. I could see him balling out in this game. I don't know. I see Philip Rivers throwing all over that Raiders poor secondary, that banged up secondary. So I think the Chargers are going to find a way to win. I think they end up winning like a 28-17 type of win for the Chargers. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it moving though, and this next matchup doesn't have much playoff. It doesn't have any playoff implications whatsoever. Detroit's traveling to Denver to face the Broncos. As far as the Lions injury report heading into this, Devin Kennard these three players have not practiced. Devin Kennard with a hamstring, A'Shawn Robinson with a shoulder, Damon Harrison with a calf and knee. And then these following three players have been limited. Christian Jones with a shoulder, Bo Scarborough with a rib, and then Rick Wagner with a knee injury. And then on the Broncos front, two players have not practiced on their offensive line this week. Jawan James with a knee, Ron Leary with a concussion. And then these three players have been limited. Dalton Reisner with an illness, Noah Fant with a shoulder, and then Draymond Jones with an ankle injury. As far as this game, like I said, there's not really any implications going on. You're talking about David Blau on the road, who has struggled this year against Denver, who has a relatively good defense. And then I think with it being at a home and with how banged up the Lions are right now, I think the Broncos do win this game. I think they lean on the run game. I think Cortland Sutton has himself a day. I think they're able to get after David Blau, force him into mistakes, force him into interceptions, similar to how the Bucs did last week. So I think the Broncos do win. I can see them winning like a 24-10 type of win for the Broncos. I'm going to go ahead and get into this next matchup. This one does have some playoff implications on the line as far as the Seahawks end. Arizona's traveling out to Seattle to face the Seahawks. As far as injury report, Justin Pugh on the Cardinals has not practiced with a back injury. And then both these players have been limited. Christian Kirk with an ankle and Jordan Hicks with a calf injury. And then Seahawks I didn't realize after their Panthers matchup, they're really banged up right now. And this is the last thing they want to deal with as they enter the playoffs. But these following players have not practiced this week. Quandre Diggs with an ankle, Dwayne Brown with a bicep and knee, Bobby Wagner with an ankle, Jadeveon Clowney with a core injury, Shaquille Griffin with a hamstring injury, and Michael Kendricks with a hamstring injury. And it doesn't stop there. These guys have been limited. Joey Hunt with a fibula, Mike Iupati with a neck and ankle, and then Luke Wilson with a hamstring injury. So Seahawks are entering this matchup with a banged up. They obviously want to win because they got the important matchup against the Niners next week. They currently sit at the number 1 seed in the NFC, so obviously they want to hold that over the 49ers. So this is a very important matchup for the Seahawks to get a win, even with all these injuries. But then you're talking about the Cardinals, who just came off of beating up on the Browns, and I honestly think the Cardinals are like, I've talked about this over the last month. they're a team like you don't want to face because they have the potential to be that spoiler type of team. And with all these injuries to the Seahawks, I mean, this could be like a signature win for the Cardinals for them to head into the 2020 season win. Like, I know they probably, obviously, they want to have some good draft position to help out, maybe get a key offensive lineman in the draft. But this could be a win. This could be a confidence builder for a Kyle Murray, for a Cliff Kingsbury heading into next year. It's a divisional matchup. Those are always pretty tough. But even with all the injuries, this is in Seattle. You're talking about the 12s. I think the crowd can help them out. I do think that Seattle will find a way to win. I think it's going to be close because of the injuries, because of it's a divisional matchup. I think the Cardinals will have a chance to win this game, but I think Russell Wilson finds a way to pull the rabbit out of a hat, to say the least, and find a way to win. I could see this being like a 28-24 type of win for the Seahawks. And then I'm going to go ahead and get into the big NFC East matchup. I mean, I don't know if you want to say big with how bad these teams have been this year, but it's a big one because the Cowboys win this. They win the NFC East. And now this is Dallas in Philadelphia. If Dallas wins this, they do win the NFC East. But if the Eagles win this, the Eagles have to win next week to win the NFC East. So they don't necessarily, if they win this, it doesn't mean they win the NFC East. So still a lot of line for both these teams. As far as injuries on the Cowboys front, Leighton Vander Esch has yet to return to practice with his neck injury. It feels like a season's done, in my opinion. And then these following players have been limited this week. Dak Prescott with a shoulder, Michael Bennett with a foot and illness, Lyle Collins with a knee, Chris Jones with an abdomen, Sean Lee with a pectoral and thigh, and then Zach Martin with an ankle injury. And then as far as the Eagles injury report, Nelson Aguilar has not practiced with a knee, Derek Barnett with an ankle, and Lane Johnson also with an ankle. Those three players have not practiced. And then these following players have been limited this week. Brandon Brooks with a calf, Fletcher Cox with a triceps. I honestly didn't know what a tricep was. I had to look that up and see if that was a legit thing. I wanted to see if that wasn't a misspelling on the injury report. But yes, there's a tricep thing on your body. Ronald Darby with a hip flexor, Jordan Howard with a shoulder injury, and then J.J. Arcega-Whiteside with a foot injury. And side note, guys, if you guys see J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, you might be thinking I'm saying that wrong. But for all those, because I questioned it too, for all those people that might question why people say it's Arcega, he's from Spain. And he asked for it to be said that way because apparently that's how they say it over in Spain. So if anybody ever questions why analysts, why broadcasters say Arcega-Whiteside, that is why. I always thought it was Arcega-Whiteside, to be honest. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get a preview in this matchup. Dallas against the Eagles. This is so hard for me to pick because, if we get the Cowboys team we saw last week, I'm picking the Cowboys. Like, Cowboys got the more talent. I won't say they got the better coaching staff, but they got the more talent. They played. I feel like they have played, even though the Cowboys had like that 4 to 6 week stretch where they were really bad. I still feel like they have been more consistent compared to the Eagles. Eagles have just been riddled with injuries. They've been so inconsistent. I mean, there was an opportunity where I thought they were going to lose to the Redskins last week, but it's in Philadelphia. I think it's going to be a very close game, a good NFC East type of game. But if I had to pick, I'm going to pick the Cowboys just because of how they played last week. It seems like they're going to get back on track and at least get into the playoffs. Now, we'll see what they do come playoff time. But if I'm going to pick, I think Dallas does find a way to win. I think their defense can get after Carson Wentz, maybe force him into mistakes. I think the limited options on the offense, looks like Aguilar is going to miss a week again. So he basically only has Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. Maybe AAF legend Greg Ward could help him out. But, yeah, I think the limitations of the Eagles' offense will show out in this game. And I think the Cowboys will do enough to win this game. I think the Cowboys win I can see them winning like a 27-24 type of win. I do think it's going to be a close, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles find a way to win, but I trust the Cowboys more just because the Eagles are just so banged up. on the offense right now, and they are so limited in what they can do on the offense. So I think the Cowboys do win, and they win the NFC East, and they find themselves in the playoffs, and they're going to host a playoff game. Now I'm going to go ahead and get into the Sunday night game. The Chiefs are traveling out to Chicago to face the Bears. Quick note, the Chiefs were the team that ended up getting Terrell Suggs. They end up landing him, and he did not hold out. He said how it's not that hard of a sell for him to come play for Patrick Mahomes. So they get that much needed edge rusher since Alex Okafor went on IR. So he'll be opposite of Frank Clark, and that could be a deadly duo come playoff time. As far as injuries, though, for this matchup, with the Chiefs, Andrew Wiley has not practiced with an ankle, shoulder, and illness. Damian Williams has been limited with a rib, and McCole Hardman has been limited with a glute injury. And on the Bears front, Taylor Gabriel has not practiced with a concussion. Bobby Massey with an ankle has not practiced. Then Prince Amuka Kamara has been limited with a hamstring injury. As far as this matchup, though, I think the Chiefs are going to walk all over them. I think they're just going to score more. That sounds so John Madden. They're going to score more points than the Bears. Sorry for saying that. I guess maybe it's just a habit when you're in the swing of things. But I just think they're going to blow up. They're going to find the end zone more than Chicago, to say the least. And then also, too, because they want to win. If they keep on winning and, like, say the Patriots do lose to the Bills, that's going to give them an opportunity this weekend to slide into the number 2 seed in the AFC. So, obviously, they want to win out, so they have a chance at the number 2 seed, get that first-round bye. I think Kansas City handles their business. I think they win I really do. I think they're going to beat up on the Bears. I think they're going to win like a 35-21 type win for Kansas City. And then the Monday night matchup is the Packers and Vikings. There's no news. Obviously, I'll talk about the injury report come on my Monday episode of Cody Talks NFL. So stay tuned in for that. I'll give you my preview, but I'll say this, guys, if you're a Dalvin Cook owner, sounds like he's going to miss this week. So do make your adjustments in your fantasy lineup. That's all I got to say on that game. And then, all right, so I'm getting to Rob's question. With the pick 6 and the Blitz breakdown, both having a Christmas present themed episode, what Christmas present would you want Santa to give your Colts? I heard your little shot on the TVB episode about giving them some luck and talking about the player. Obviously, if Andrew Luck could return next year, I would say that, but from what I've heard, it sounds like he's pretty much done with football. So if I'm going to be realistic, I guess, I don't know, what do I want the Colts? I want us to be back in the playoffs next year. I want better quarterback play. So whether that's Jacoby Brissett taking the next step as a quarterback next year, because he has regressed as the season went on. I thought he played great. If anybody's been a listener of mine over the last year, I thought he was going to be a better quarterback throughout the season. So, okay, so it sounds like I'm having a robot voice. I'm going to keep going for you guys. I don't know why this keeps on happening at my end of my episodes. So, yeah, just better quarterback play. So whether it's Jacoby Brissett taking that next step next year, whether it's a rookie quarterback that they draft, maybe like a Jordan Love, or maybe somehow my prayers are answered and we get the number 1 pick and we draft Trevor Lawrence. But yeah, other than that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up because it sounds like my voice is not coming through clear on for you guys, and it makes no sense for me to cut it off right here. If you like what you heard, though, for this episode, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe on this channel. Go subscribe to the Blitzalytics Podcast Network, where not only you get the audio version of this, but you also get the Blitz Breakdown, the Pick 6, XFL Files, Fantasy Football Hot Seat. We only got 1 episode left. Tune into this week's episode if you need some help setting your championship lineups. Also, too, if you're still looking for some gifts, check out Blitzalytics.com. Click the store button. Tons of options that Rob has for you. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, though, guys, because I'm sure my voice sounds terrible right now with that robot voice. But thank you for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Blitz out.
Thank you for watching Cody Talks NFL, presented by Blitzalytics.com. As always, hit that like and subscribe button, and then hit that bell notification icon to stay up to date on all things football.